Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the second day of January 2019. Well, apologies for yesterday's video not going up when it was supposed to. I didn't pay any attention. We had internet the night before. It was there when I went to bed. I don't know what happened, but it ended up being an area-wide outage here where I live, and we didn't get our internet back until God, I don't know. It was like 5 or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. I'm not sure when it was, but it was late. And it was probably off all day. I mean, who knows? Maybe, New Year's Eve festivities and all of that. Maybe somebody hit something. I don't know. I have no idea what happened. I just know that it was area wide. So I'm sorry that this didn't go up when it was supposed to. I ended up only getting the lunar transits up on the blog. So I have part of the rune casting for the year done. I don't have the whole thing done. So I'll work on that today and get it up. I had a hard time. I had to use the WordPress app on my iPad, and I wasn't sure that it was saving. So I didn't want to work on two things at once, and I couldn't seem to go offline on my laptop to do the other one. So I don't know. I did the best I could and tried not to stress too much. I hate that when I can't upload. It's awful. So in any event, we're back today and hopefully we'll be good to go for a while. You just never know around here. We switched to DirecTV from having the cable company do everything because we always had so much trouble. We're kind of at the end of the line in a sense. In terms of where they have the cable lines in our area. And so inevitably something happens and our whole little section out here ends up getting no service. And so they came out and they put in a whole bunch of new lines and everything. But I think that structurally, it's one thing to put in new lines from the existing box, but if the box is at the end of the line, you can only do so many boosters, I guess. And so it kind of is what it is. So that's why we switched to DirecTV for our television, and so we have satellite for that, but we kept the cable for the internet. And most of the time, it's doing pretty well, but once in a while, something will happen. So I'm sorry about that. Anyhow, let's count 13 and see what we have for today. Well, we're going to draw another one. We have the King of Wands. Can't imagine who that might be, huh? So we have a fiery individual in authority, a male energy. He can be authoritative. He can be benevolent. He likes to get things done, full of vitality and all of that. But, kings can be an interesting guy. He's concerned about legacy. He's not looking forward. He's kind of looking, to the past. But being a wands, that's fire. So you're talking about energy and vitality. I mean, but you could be talking about arrogance as well. I don't really like the kings so much in these decks. Maybe the King of Pentacles is okay, but the rest of them, I don't know. But as we know, court cards need somebody to interact with. So let's take a look and see what this king's all about. We'll count 13 and draw another card and add a little depth to the reading. Well, we have the Nine of Pentacles. So in a sense, what we have, if we're going to look at it in terms of directionality, let's see if I can do this right. So in a sense, he's thinking about his legacy, maybe. And with the Nine of Pentacles, we're looking at completion. And so there's a sense of settledness about this woman, isn't there? Can I get the glare off that a little bit? It's like she doesn't really have a care in the world. Now, that could be a positive thing, which means that there's abundance for everyone. But it could also mean that she really doesn't, she's a little bit aloof, maybe. She's not really all that, she's just focused on her own stuff. Because that's kind of what I get here. It's like she's not really, she's kind of in her own place, in her own head. And so she's not really, I mean, she's clearly living her legacy, living her wealth. Um, but there's a solitary feeling to the woman. So maybe we're talking about some inner concerns of the king. I mean, clearly there's abundance in their lives. So either the king is concerned about how things are structured in his life right now, or he's I mean, the issue with this particular king is that he can be cruel, he can be bigoted, but he can also be very outgoing and passionate. It's almost like he's the warrior king in a way. But sometimes it's like the whole pride goeth before the fall idea. The King of Wands doesn't look toward the future. He's not even looking at us directly. He's concerned about past issues. He's concerned about maybe his past catching up with him, maybe. This card could mean that he's concerned about things going on without him. That maybe we have a woman who's just going to come in and take care of business, maybe. Oh my. But it's almost like in the Nine of Pentacles, what we have is a woman here, maybe, who has her ducks in a row, and she's ready to go. She's ready to establish the legacy, maybe. And what we have here is the king looking back at her thinking, it's not uncommon for women to have to clean up messes, is it? We're going to do another card. Ace of Swords. The aces are the beginning, the root of in this case, the root of the power of air, okay? So the root of intellect. So we have three suits represented here. We have swords, we have wands, we have pentacles. And so we have air, we have will. Air is intellect. We have fire, which is will. And we have pentacles, which is the earth, and that's our physical, concerns, our legacy, our security, our finances, all of that. Basically the mundane aspects of life, our foundation. And so with the Ace of Swords, what we have is the hands coming out from the clouds, reaching out. It can mean victory. You can see the sword with the crown on the top with the garland hanging from it. But it's new ideas and new thought, basically. So what we could have here, a little card interaction. Okay, wait, let's go this way, because we want him looking at her, don't we? All right, so we've got the king looking back at this woman of means, right? And she's gonna take care of business while he just sits there doing Lord knows what, maybe bringing in some new ideas to the mix. Well, that's interesting. Let's see if there's a little more on the Ace of Swords here that I'm not remembering that might be of interest here. Clarity, formulating conscious thought into manifested form, cutting through illusion. I love this one that I wrote down. Intellect at its best and most controlled aspect. That must be from the Thoth Tarot, from Lon Milo Duquette's book, which is an excellent book, by the way. If you're interested in the Thoth Tarot, I happen to love it. It's my favorite deck of all of them. I have no idea why. I guess because I react intuitively to it, and it's an energetic, uh, full of life and vigor and just all kinds of. It's just the most interesting deck out there, I think. Totally non-traditional, though. A lot of people don't relate to it, and so it's hard for them. But I think that was from Lon Milo Duquette was that particular comment. But basically, the conquering hero is returning. I don't think it's the king. I think the hero is this woman here. You know, she's got her ducks in a row. She's got everything planned. It's all ready. The foundation is there, and we're ready for new thought to take hold. You know, today we have a day of balance. It's a 2-day. So, you know, we're talking polarity. And clearly, I think we've got some polarity working here, don't we, between these two people? You've got one that really isn't seeing anything. He's just looking at the past. He's not seeing what's in front of him. He's not looking at the future. He's not listening to anything or anyone. He's just worried about this woman and her new ideas to cut through the crap, to cut through the illusion of things. So let's draw a rune, though. I'm not sure what I've done with my rune grimoire, but that's okay. I have another one. If I get into trouble, if I can't remember something, I like to keep my little grimoires nearby. Whenever I do my research on these things, whether it's on tarot or any of the runes, I like to just write things down that different authors have come up with, because some of these folks, you know, they've spent a lifetime, you know, studying the runes or studying tarot, and it's just basically their whole life, and they really have some insights just from their own perspective. You know, maybe they disagree with someone else, but it gives different ideas about that one particular card or that one particular rune. And so I like to just write them down because, you know, these people have done the work. And so some of this stuff is my own, but some of it isn't. Some of it belongs to other people. And I've liked it enough that it resonates with me. And so I interpret it that way. So I have a lot of them, actually. I have bigger ones. I use a really small one, and then I have this one that I have a whole bunch of stuff in. But I like to have a smaller one that I can just kind of thumb through really quickly if I need to. But here we have Yura. This is the 12th rune of the Elder Futhark, and so you're looking at a three numerology. So, you know, again, it's a catalytic number. It's mind, body, spirit. It's balanced energy. And Yura is basically that. You know, we're talking about moving energy through the body. It's also an as above, so below, mind, body, spirit alignment type of a rune. It can be used in a garden bind rune. I created a garden bind rune that I have several of them that I made, and I have them hanging around in my greenhouses and in my little garden areas to speed growth and fertility during the growing season. But this is transformation. You're transforming from one state to the other. You can see that the rune itself is made up of kinaz, forward and reversed. And so we're talking clarity as well. And that aligns well with the Ace of Swords, doesn't it? And also it aligns well with today being a day of balance. So, you know, a 2-day. So if you want to also talk about communication, because it's a Mercury day, then what you're looking at is balanced exchange with others, between people, balanced interaction. So basically, Yura or it means also year, but it's basically moving energy in a balanced way. Okay? We're exchanging energy in a balanced way. We'll see. There's supposed to be a meeting today, maybe tomorrow. We'll see if there's any balanced integration or balanced communication between these two. We'll see. Well, that's interesting. I think what we have here is a new kind of interaction on the horizon. I think that it's telling us that we need to, if this is happening for us in our lives, maybe we're going to strike out and have a different type of exchange with people this year. I think that last year was difficult. It was very volatile, very emotional. You had a lot of uh, skirmishes in the streets that you wouldn't think you'd have. I live in Oregon, and so I saw reports of things happening in Portland. I lived in downtown Portland while I was in college for part of my time there. I went to 3 different colleges, and I finally spent the last 3 years at Portland State University and in downtown Portland. And Portland was just an amazing place. It was progressive. I mean, it still is, but I don't know what's happened now. You've got all of this violence, all of this Antifa versus white nationalist stuff going on in a place that was so diverse that I remember when the Portland Trailblazers in the 70s, because I was in college in the 70s. And I remember that the biggest thing that happened to everyone was that the Trailblazers won the championship. And I mean, literally, when they came back, there was this massive parade down Broadway, and I had to study for an exam, so I didn't go. But everybody I knew was down there. Nobody was at work. Businesses closed. The whole place was just beside themselves because the Trailblazers won the basketball championship that year. So that was the kind of stuff that was going on in Portland when I was still living there. And to see some of the stuff that's gone on, to see people not be able to talk to one another, to see uh, the vitriol at the endless rallies that the guy in the Oval Office wants to have. It's just it's been a weird time. We've never seen this before. And I think that his supporters seem to think that that's the whole point. We want to do something we've never done before, but if it isn't good stuff, then why would you? I mean, it's one thing to want to bring change and to really shake things up. Sometimes you have to do that. But when people are hurt in the process, when people are harmed physically, I don't know. I think that maybe that's just not the right way to do things, but that's just me. So I think with today's reading, what we're talking about is how are we going to progress? How are we going to interact? Are we going to do things in a way that we're at loggerheads or at odds with one another? And if we do that, then we aren't going to progress. We're not going to go anywhere than where we are. Currently, unless something has happened while we were on our walk and while I'm doing this that I don't know about, the government is still shut down. People don't know how they're going to pay their bills. Some may lose their homes. Some may, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen to them? How long this is going to drag out? Instead of listening to what, the people at the border want, instead, he wants to build a wall. Now, his chief of staff that's leaving has indicated that no one's talking about a wall inside the White House. And they haven't been since the get-go, that it's always been about other things. So why continue with this chant of build the wall if it's never really been on the table? Why pretend that it is, just to keep people stirred up, to keep the us versus them experience going? But I think what we're seeing today in today's reading The king may be isolated here. I mean, he really looks isolated. He's not sitting in front. You don't see really his kingdom behind him. You see a little lizard right there, you know, little salamander, fire element. But he's really by himself. While this lady, she's just hanging out, waiting to do this. Now, that can either, again, proceed in a balanced, transformative way, or we can continue as we are. But I don't think that if we do that, this guy's going to be around much longer because, people are not interested in someone without solutions or pretend solutions that are just there to divide people, okay? That's not what this country's ever been about. I'm not sure why it's happening now, but it is. Now, if you are experiencing, if you're somebody that's going to have to come in and deal with a bunch of nonsense on behalf of others, then blessings to you. If that's happening in your personal life, it's probably not going to be very comfortable an experience to have, particularly if you have someone in authority, a male energy, but it doesn't have to even be a man, really. It could just be a very, very strong woman who can't listen, who's not thinking clearly, whose will is stronger than any kind of reason could be. But whatever it is that you're contending with, be prepared for maybe that individual to not welcome, your solutions, but stand in your own power, because whatever the circumstance is, there are people likely that are depending upon your wisdom to try to calm the waters, so to speak, and to bring us back into some kind of a structure and foundation from which we can all move forward. Okay? What's been going on has been erratic and weird and doesn't make any sense. Now, the voice of reason is here, and it seems to be in the embodiment of a woman who's going to come and who's going to bring compassion and respect and reason back to the situation. So whether we're talking collectively in our country, if this is another one of those kind of readings, because a lot of them have been, they can either apply, collectively to us, to what we're experiencing, or they can definitely apply to what's going on internally in our own lives. So maybe you're coming back from Christmas break to a job where you're going to have to provide some answers here because the boss just doesn't have them. So stay strong, because you possess the will and the groundedness to do the right thing. Whereas the guy in power clearly doesn't have that ability. So that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Focus on the Yira of it, the balanced energy exchange of it, very similar to Gebo in that regard. But, Yira is more about transformation and balance. And so we need to transform things and we need to balance things all at the same time. And it's looking like we have someone that can do that. I'd say so. But, I dropped it on the floor. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and close here and try to get this thing uploaded before anything else happens. So I usually get a little paranoid for a few days after one of these episodes because it's like, oh no, not again. I always have this horrible feeling that it's when I'm doing online banking and then the internet goes out. It's like, okay, what actually went? I don't want to pay something twice. So anyhow, thank you so much for coming by. Check out the blog, Stepping Aside, at imsteppingaside.com. I'm hoping to get that year reading, that rune casting for the whole year up today, and check out the lunar transits. They're up, and they're in Sagittarius. Moon's in Sagittarius right now, so a little better, than the Scorpio time. That wasn't comfortable. So, in any event, be good to yourself. Be good to one another. Click subscribe. I'd love you to do that. Hope you come back tomorrow because I'll be here, and blessed be.